I am genuinely actually kind of lost now. Hopefully this doesn't turn into a lost footage movie. That would suck. And I can't actually hear my family anymore. And I'm very out of breath, so I can't concentrate. So I'm going to switch off the camera and try and find my way out of here. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be making some Mirkwood themed scatter terrain for Middle Earth strategy battle game, or any tabletop RPG game like Dungeons and Dragons. I will be taking a brief excursion into the actual real Mirkwood a little later on, but first I'm going to be making some bases for my scatter terrain, and for this I'm using 3mm thick MDF, which I cut down into some nice random shapes using a coping saw. As you can see, I also nicely beveled all the edges with a little bit of sandpaper. Now we're ready to make some Mirkwood scatter terrain, but first we need some real life inspiration. Okay, so we're in Devil's Chapel Scowls, and I'm just taking some footage down here because Tolkien was influenced by a lot of the area that we're looking at today. In the Forest of Dean, lots of the trees and rock outcrops influenced The Hobbit in Mirkwood, and also influenced Fangorn Forest. So today I'm looking at Devil's Chapel Scowls, and I'm taking you with me.
I have always, for some reason, I don't know why, I'm enormously attracted by trees. All my work is full of trees. I suppose I should have liked to be able to make contact with a tree and find out what it feels about things.
Tolkien adored the Forest of Dean, a forest full of ancient magical atmosphere, and we loved getting lost following his footsteps.
I've been here before. We've been going in circles.
That wasn't even prompted, but that is why Tolkien was inspired here for Mirkwood. We've been going round in circles.
We're going round in circles. We are lost.
We've lost the sun.
So my family and I spent the whole day lost in Devil's Chapel Scowls, and I got tons more footage. There are so many twists and turns and interesting things to look at, so if you're interested in me editing together a full exploration video, let me know in the comments. In the meantime, it's time to get back to some crafting, but first I have some very sad news to report. I broke my favourite knife. This might not seem very newsworthy to you, but as regular viewers on my channel will know, I absolutely love this wood carving knife and I used it for everything. Such a versatile tool, and when the tip broke, my heart genuinely sank. Having a good tool is like having a good friend that you can rely on, and when they are gone, it is hard to bear. But have no fear, gladly the good people over at Beavercraft actually noticed that I haven't been using my carving knife in my videos more recently, and they kindly sent me out a beautiful new set of wood carving tools. I am still going to miss my old knife, but this really did take a little bit of the sting away. I'm going to use this one. Thank you, Beavercraft. Much appreciated. At some point I will do a video tutorial on how best to use some of these lovely wood carving tools. In the meantime, let's get back to crafting Mirkwood, and I'm going to be using the whittling knife to carve up some XPS foam offcuts into some nice rocky terrain shapes. Obviously you could just do this with an X-Acto knife or a Stanley blade, but genuinely these wood carving knives are made so perfectly to fit your hand and they are so comfortable. So if you're interested in picking up some, please check out the links in the video description below. I do actually have an affiliate link with Beavercraft, so if you do decide to shop with them, I will get a little kickback and you can actually help support my channel at the same time, and everyone is a winner. Right, as you can see, I glued down all of my XPS foam pieces to the bases using a little bit of hot glue. I also finally had a good reason to use some of the old offcuts from a previous build. Back when I built my Balrog vs Gandalf on the tower of the peak of Zorak-Sagil, I had to cut pieces off the tower, much to my dismay, and I have been holding on to them in the hope that I would be able to use them in another project. And gladly, this was the day. Mirkwood is an ancient forest after all, and there have been many ruins that have been overgrown over the years. I'm ready to start making some big gnarly old trees to wrap in amongst all of this limestone. For this I would normally use hot glue and string, but that process actually takes quite a long time even though the result is lovely. So this time I'm going to be stealing a method off my friend Joe over at Encounter Terrain, and I've got myself a big box of pipe cleaners. Of course I will leave a link to Joe's Instagram in the description below. Might have used too many pipe cleaners, but we're going to carry on and see how we get on. So I wanted to make some gnarly big thick trees, so I ended up using loads of pipe cleaners and probably ended up spending just as much time as I would have in the string and hot glue method, if not more. Okay, that's the armature complete. Now it's time for the fun part. We should do that outside. So in case you're wondering what's happening here, the blowtorch is melting the fuzz on the pipe cleaners and fusing the whole thing together into one solid clump. And at this stage, it's pretty much ready to paint if you like the texture. For my taste though, I am aiming for a more realistic bark texture, so I dug an old tub of mud texture paste that I found at the back of a cupboard. It actually worked perfectly for this. You don't need an expensive texture paste for something like this though. You could probably achieve a similar result with a bit of wood glue and tile grout mixed together. Now before I go any further, I'm just going to quickly mention that this video is a bit of a collab with my friend Benji over at Benjis Hobbies. He was actually working on some spiders when I started filming this, and of course I convinced Benji that once he finished painting all of his spiders, he had to send them to me because Mirkwood needs spiders. So keep an eye out for that a little later on in the video.
What's going on? We've lost the path.
Find it. All of you, look. Look for the path.
I wanted to make it look like there was some ancient overgrown paths going through the forest, just like the films, so you can see that I added some polymer clay strips, then I textured it with a texture roller from Shifting Lands, and after baking the clay, I simply glued these pieces to the bases. Previously I wasn't a fan of using texture rollers, but that's when I used it with XPS foam. When you use the roller with clay, the results are actually pretty impressive. So I will definitely be experimenting a bit more with texture rollers and polymer clay in future projects for sure. Okay, time to bust out the bag of terrarium bark chips that I have been using for the last 3 years to add boulders, rocks and debris to my terrain. I usually start with larger boulders, squeezing hot glue all over the areas that I need it, and just placing in the large wood chips as randomly as you like. From there I work my way down to smaller gradients of wood chips and debris. And this is really for people who have never visited my channel before or who are completely new to crafting, but you can do this easily with a hand blender. Although this process can get a bit messy if you don't cover it over. Once you're done blending, you're left with debris of mixed gradients. You can separate this out into different gradients if you like with a sieve, or you can simply squeeze PVA glue everywhere you want all of the texture and sprinkle away to your heart's content. I've been using this method for a couple of years now and have yet to find a better method for adding natural debris and rock textures to your terrain. On to texturing my XPS foam rocks. This is really a process I intended to do much earlier in the video whenever I was carving the rocks, but I totally forgot to do it. So yeah, retrospectively catching up on myself here. And with that done, it is on to painting the terrain. For the base coat, I'm using a very dark grey mixed with Mod Podge. Your base coat really doesn't have to be that dark. You can see here that I've already painted the majority of my scattered terrain off camera and saved one to film. I will be using 3 main paint colours before I get on to my washes: burnt umber, green grey and titanium white. Starting with a strong application of burnt umber in all the places that might be considered dirty or muddy areas. That kind of means all of the areas without rocks or protrusions sticking out. Once those areas are covered, I then remove the majority of the paint from my brush so that I can start dry brushing over all the rocks with the same burnt umber. You can do this in quite a patchy way, the more random the better. I then add a squirt of titanium white to my paint palette and mix it in with the burnt umber to get a light brown or deep tan colour, and then repeat the dry brushing process over all the stones and rocky areas. I then do the exact same thing with green grey. I just forgot to film the squirt of the paint. From here on, I then repeat the same cycle but lightening the colours each time by adding a little more titanium white. As you get up to the lighter colours, you should keep your brush really dry so that the paint is only really coming off on all of those raised areas, giving you some really nice highlights. And already the terrain is starting to look pretty convincing even before adding our washes. The washes are going to take it up another whole level, but before that, while I have my paint palette out, I'm going to be giving all of my trees a good dry brushing with green grey. After all, trees aren't really that brown. Before I actually started to add all of my washes, it's time to glue all of the trees to the bases. For this I opted to use hot glue because I was looking for that pretty much instant bond, and it was actually made pretty easy by the fact that the trees are made from pipe cleaners and the limbs are really flexible, so you can bend them into pretty much any direction that you like, and you can just hold them into place while the glue dries. And the bond that you get between the trees and the rocks is super strong. The downside, however, is that you do get some visible hot glue splurging out around the roots sometimes, so I was removing this with a sculpting tool as I was going along, which seemed to work really well. With the trees properly secure, it was time to start tying all of this together with some washes. And I opted to be a little bit lazy with this by not mixing my own washes and using some washes from Citadel. Sparingly of course, and occasionally a little watered down. I really like Agrax Earthshade and also Athonian Canvas Shade, and I just added them anywhere I felt that needed a little dirt build-up or streaks of green grime. With these scattered terrain pieces, I'm trying to lean hard into the realism of the terrain, so all of these steps I am doing are somewhat optional depending on your own preferences. I'm just showing you here what you can achieve if you keep adding more details. And speaking of detail, I just want to give a quick shout out and thanks to Kraut Cover for this awesome care package that they sent me out. And it couldn't have been more perfect timing really. I've been wanting to try out their stuff for a while now, and this project was a perfect opportunity. Thanks also to Thomas over at Chicken's Tabletop Crafting for hooking me up and making the connection there. Of course, I selected a few of their products that I felt suited my scattered terrain and would help me enhance the realism of the project, starting off with Kodama Woods. And because I'm doing quite a heavy sprinkling of this base cover in around the roots of the trees, I'm using Kraut tack glue. And once that is set up a little, I then use the Kraut fixer solution, which helps to bind together all of those loose debris bits on top. You only really need to use the Kraut tack in the areas with a thicker application of basing product so that it really holds on tight, but you can actually use the Kraut fixer all on its own. It absorbs into your basing product and helps bind it all together. I was actually hanging out with some of the guys over on my Discord server whenever I started using the Kraut cover stuff, and was kind of giving them a live review of what I thought about the products compared to other basing products as I was going along, and I have to say that I really like these products. That's just an honest opinion. I especially like the A Tale of Grimdark basing cover, which loads of little bones and skulls mixed in through it, which was absolutely perfect for my Mirkwood project. A super easy way to add that grimdark vibe to the project, with the remains of lost travellers who have been cruelly dispatched by giant spiders scattered throughout the forest. A little pinch here and there, and straight away you turn that little corner of your scattered terrain into something that is just a little bit more ominous and foreboding. At this point, I was feeling that my terrain in general was looking a bit too brown, so I used some of the Meadows of Purity here and there just to add some patchy green grass areas that maybe the sunlight had managed to creep through the trees and allow some small amount of growth. So I guess that's kind of turned into a little bit of a review of Kraut Cover. I really do like the products. Definitely check them out for some awesome scenics, and also Chicken's Tabletop Crafting for some awesome crafts. Now, I mentioned briefly there that I was feeling that my terrain was looking a bit too drab and brown, and I was looking for a way to add green to the project without adding too much foliage. So I'd been asking around in the community for a few suggestions, and John from J-Mac's Armies of Middle Earth, that's the genius drinking a pint of Baileys during one of our Discord hangouts. Yes, I'll say that again, a pint of Baileys. He had a suggestion of trying some Dirty Down Moss. When I saw some of the results on Google, I instantly bought a couple of bottles. The only problem with this stuff is that you really need to mix it up properly before using it, and it takes ages before you can get that little ball rattling around to mix it.
Finally.
But once this stuff is mixed up and you start applying it, the project pretty much instantly starts coming to life. I have no affiliation with this product in any way, but I can honestly say that this might just be my new favourite product. So I expect that you will be seeing a lot more of it on my channel from here on. As John says, this stuff is liquid talent. Once I started adding it to the project, I almost couldn't stop. It really helped give that ancient mossy vibe to the forest that I was looking for right from the very beginning. Oh, and speaking of John from J-Mac's Armies of Middle Earth, I actually commissioned him to paint up the Thorns Company minis that you will see in the final reveal a little later on. So thanks to John, and also thanks to Benji for painting up my spiders and contributing to this project. Please be sure to check out both of their videos in the description below or in the playlist at the end of this video. Now, the one kind of foliage that I did want to add to my forest was creeping vines or ivy crawling up through the trees. And these are the best vines that I've ever found for diorama making from K-Way DIY Miniature. To apply these to the terrain, I just used a little Kraut tack glue and pinned them into position with sewing pins. Of course, when the glue is set, you just go back and pull out all of the pins. I'll also leave a link for these vines for you guys in the description below. I'm sure some of you guys would love to pick some up. But these vines are a really nice way to add some instant realism because they are actually vines of some kind. I'm not sure what plant they are because the writing on the box is in Japanese, so if anyone knows what plant these are, please let me know and I might actually attempt growing some at home. It was kind of tempting to leave the trees looking just like this because I do really like the gnarly old dead tree vibes, but this is Mirkwood, and Mirkwood needs that thick canopy for Bilbo to break through and get that breath of fresh air. For the base of my tree canopy, I'm using something that I have never tried before and is a little bit strange: rubberized horsehair. I actually heard a rumour that Viggo Mortensen is shaving the horses that he bought after filming The Lord of the Rings and is making an absolute killing out of this stuff. Anyways, I picked up the tip off for this stuff from Voodoo Tabletop Crafts over on my Discord server. I absolutely love my server at the minute for that reason, just a gold mine for finding new tips and tricks. I subsequently did a little more research, and the process that I'm going to show you here in this video I picked up directly from Mel the Terrain Shooter. Previously I have used seafoam in my tree canopies, and although seafoam does look really nice and realistic, it is very fragile. Rubberized horsehair on the other hand not only looks great but is extremely durable, meaning that you're not going to be accidentally breaking bits off your trees when you're putting them out on the table or storing them in boxes. To attach the horsehair to my tree limbs, I used a few dabs of superglue and held it into place until it was set. You could also use PVA glue, but the superglue means that you have virtually no waiting time before moving on to the next step. And for the next step, I'm using spray mount adhesive. So to protect my terrain from getting all sticky, I put the pieces inside a plastic bag with just the canopy poking through the top. I also covered my kitchen table with paper to protect it because spray mount is not the easiest thing in the world to clean up. For my leafy foliage, I'm using a fine foam flock. You can simply sprinkle it onto the horsehair, and if needed, add a little more spray adhesive as you go along. I occasionally press the flock down onto the horsehair just to make sure that it gets some nice purchase on the adhesive. And once you've shaken off any of the loose foam flock, you can use a fixative to hold it all together. This is where you raid the bathroom cupboard and pinch your wife's hairspray. Or if you prefer, you can get a matte varnish spray, which would also do the trick. And there you go, a great looking durable tree canopy fit for any tabletop. Spider webs. Mirkwood would not be Mirkwood without spider webs. And for this last detail, I am using used dryer sheets. When you pull apart the fibre of these dryer sheets, it gives a really nice spider web effect, and you can simply glue it into place using PVA glue or Kraut tack. I picked this up from Lawrence over at Dirty Basement Terrain. His channel is full of lots of creepy tips like this, so if you like your crafting a little more creepy and horror orientated, be sure to check out his channel. I didn't want to have the spider webs over all of my terrain pieces, so I just choose a few of the smaller pieces to add the web effect to. That way the set of terrain is a bit more versatile, and you can have the forest getting a little more dangerous and infested as you venture further in and get lost, which we're about to do right now.
The meat's alive and kicking. Kill them now. Let us feast. Please, feast, feast. Fat and juicy. Just a little taste.
I think I probably did more shout outs in this video than I have ever done before, and there's a very good reason for that. My real life job has been taking up more and more of my time of late, so when it comes to making projects for YouTube, I'm really having to take my time. And over that time, people have been sending me stuff to support the channel, which I massively appreciate. And I really do believe in supporting small crafting businesses where I can, especially those who support me too. So that's why there's a lot of stuff in this video where I'm shouting people out. And also just lots of people have helped me out with this project, including Benji and John. So please make sure to go and check out their videos. And I haven't even given a shout out to all of my amazing Patreon members yet. So hey guys, thank you so much for the support as always and for the patience. And genuinely, these guys have been supporting me so much over on Patreon. You guys have been super patient and super supportive. Lots of messages of encouragement, and the hobby hangouts as well have been absolutely awesome, just keeping me going. So thank you guys so much. And also one last little shout out to do. You can see that I'm wearing a beautiful Gandalf hat here, which is totally awesome. It was made for me by Rach over at Harbonny Upcycle. She has an awesome Instagram that is criminally undersubscribed, and she's also starting a new YouTube channel, so please be sure to go and check out her stuff. With that guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope it's not so long until it's the next video. I'll see you all soon. Cheers, bye.